Hi, Dawn. Stenslamenti. You're about to see a wild, pristine place at the center of a political firestorm, the Pinelands National Reserve, and the filmmaker giving it a voice. Listening and learning from this land is the mission of New Jersey native and award-winning filmmaker David Scott Kessler. He spent the last 5 years capturing hundreds of hours of rare, never-before-seen images and interviews.
This film isn't necessarily just about the Pine Barrens. It's about like those last remaining wild places that we still have, those places that still hold some kind of mystery and wonder that that I feel like as human beings we still need.
Kessler told me how this wild place of wonder, as he calls it, captivated him. 1.1 million acres of pine, cedar, swamp, and farmland filled with endangered plants and creatures. A place with a unique character that's full of characters.
There's a bog out there. That's where you can lose people. There's a crossing that leads into the swamp. You get into the swamp, you're lost.
Ghost stories by the campfire of lost souls and the Jersey Devil carry on the dark mystique of the Pinelands, which is home to few human inhabitants. Proudly calling themselves Pineys, Kessler and his camera caught them in their natural environment, along with rare protected species from the pygmy pitch pines to the Pine Barrens tree frogs, focusing on the fascinating contradictions he found here.
You have rare orchids that grow on the side of busy highways, and you have an ecology that only is sustainable through fire. So you have really it's the fire and destruction that is the reason why the Pine Barrens still exist. So there's so many great contradictions.
Kessler is an artist and graduate of New York's renowned Parsons School of Design. He says this independent project is a work of art, not an environmental or political documentary.
So I think we have to ask ourselves what it means to have these wild natural places in our lives today, especially a place like the Pine Barrens, which is it's so unlikely that it still exists. You have this pristine place within the most densely populated state in the nation on the East Coast, which is massively built up. So, it was a political miracle, really, that it even was protected in the first place.
Kessler says he hopes his film allows audiences to experience the miracle of America's first ever national reserve, where the locals call the sand sugar and the water is America's purest. The Pinelands, including its aquifers, rivers, and lakes, are a sanctuary thanks to congressional protections since 1978.
If there could be another environmental movement like we had 40 years ago, then I think that the Pinelands really need it if we're going to have another 40 years.
I asked Kessler about the proposed 22-mile natural gas pipeline that would cut through the Pinelands.
The people, the public, are the ones who have to be the stewards of this land, because we can't count on the government doing it. Even if people on the commission actually care about the Pinelands and want to protect it, that's not enough. We really need people to stand up for it.
Kessler told me up until now, this has been an independent project. Right now, he's starting to raise funds for the final phases of post-production. So we should see the completed 2-hour project in 2017. Reporting for Another Thing, Dawn Stenslamenti. Up next, Larry's commentary.
The legitimacy of hate as a crime has once again moved to the forefront of public debate. This is after our collective consciousness was stunned by this Facebook Live video out of Chicago showing a white disabled man being tortured by 4 black men and women who repeatedly said "F white people." And after this emotional Attorney General confirmation hearing for Senator Jeff Sessions, who once voted against extending hate crimes to the LGBTQ community. The problem with the topic of hate crimes for debate is that it is wrapped in thick emotion and political agenda. But everyone that argues against hate crimes is not a racist or a homophobe. There are sane legal and constitutional arguments to be made. The problem is that sanity is lost in the wake of vengeful emotion that follows the actual crimes committed. Hate crimes originated during the open wounds and shame of post-slavery America. It was in the 1968 Civil Rights Act that penalties were increased for certain crimes if they were committed against people because of their race, color, religion, or national origin. After the horrendous 1998 murders of Matthew Shepard, a gay man who was tortured and beaten and left to die in Wisconsin, and James Byrd Jr., a black man who was dragged to his death from the back of a pickup truck in Texas, there was an understandable emotional outcry for something more to be done. Somehow, life in prison or death wasn't enough. In 2009, President Obama signed the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Health Crime Prevention Act, making hate a separate crime and extending its jurisdiction to include sexual preference. Most states have passed similar laws following the federal government's lead. But understand, hate as a crime is unprecedented in United States law, and there is an intellectual, not emotional argument to be made against those laws. Hate is a motive, not a crime. The crime comes from the violent action that is born of that hate, and in most cases, the penalty is sufficient. We travel down a dangerous path when we start making motives a crime. Should jealousy be a crime? How about a greed crime? We talk about crimes of passion. Should there be a passion crime? No, because crime is an act. It's not a feeling. It's not even a sin or a vice. It has to manifest into something criminal. And what about freedom of speech? Take the case in Chicago, for instance. It's only a hate crime because the four who abducted and tortured the victim said F white people. But speech, no matter how vile, is protected. The words only become a criminal act when they turn into violence. But even then, aren't the words protected? And that is one of the contradicting ironies of hate crimes. The charges can only come if another crime is committed. That fact alone proves that the emotions and the words are not in and of themselves a crime. So yes, there are legitimate arguments to be made against hate crimes. And no, not everyone that makes them is a racist or a homophobe or prejudiced in any way. Many, if not most, believe in the sanctity of the law and of the Bill of Rights. It's just a difficult argument to make when the opposition is rooted in the emotion of vengeance. And that is the final irony when it comes to those who protect the existence of hate crimes, because the vengeance they seek would be a hate crime if they acted outside the protection of the judicial system. And those who oppose hate crimes do so rationally. They are just drowned out by the emotion that overcomes us like a tsunami every time we hear about a crime like this one. But aren't our laws supposed to be better than that and protect even the worst of us from a vigilante movement that was embraced by politicians for suspect motives? No, hate begets hate, and hate crimes as a reaction to hate may be no better. I'm Larry Menti. See you again next week.